Blackbeard, Edward Teach. Blackbeard, born Edward Teach, was a master of psychological warfare who terrorized the Caribbean and eastern coast of North America in the early 18th century. His fearsome reputation was largely self-crafted, a brilliant strategy that often allowed him to capture ships without firing a single shot. Blackbeard's appearance was his most potent weapon. He cultivated a bionic image, weaving lit fuses into his enormous black beard, which billowed with smoke during battle. This terrifying sight, combined with his imposing physique, struck fear into the hearts of his victims before any combat began. Despite his fearsome reputation, Blackbeard was more showman than butcher. He understood that fear was more valuable than violence, as frightened crews were less likely to resist. This approach allowed him to amass considerable wealth while minimizing casualties. Blackbeard's legacy extends far beyond his brief career. His dramatic flair and clever tactics have inspired countless depictions in popular culture, cementing his status as the archetypal pirate. In many ways, Blackbeard was a pioneer of brand management, crafting an image so powerful it has endured for centuries. Bartholomew Roberts' Black Bart. Bartholomew Roberts, known as Black Bart, was the most successful pirate of the golden age of piracy, capturing over 400 ships in his brief 3-year career. Unlike many of his contemporaries, Roberts came to piracy reluctantly, pressed into service after his own ship was captured. Roberts' success stemmed from his exceptional strategic mind and strict discipline. He established a code of conduct for his crew, forbidding gambling and mandating equal share of plunder. This approach created a loyal and effective fighting force, crucial for his ambitious raids. What set Roberts apart was his audacity. He didn't just prey on merchant ships, he attacked naval vessels and slave ships, disrupting colonial trade on an unprecedented scale. His exploits spanned the Atlantic, from the Americas to Africa, earning him the moniker, the Great Pirate Roberts. Ironically, Roberts was a teetotaler in a profession known for excess. This sobriety likely contributed to his tactical acumen and longevity in a dangerous profession. His eventual demise came not from capture, but from grapeshot in a naval battle, dying as he lived in combat on the high seas. Roberts' legacy is one of paradox, a reluctant pirate who became the most successful, a disciplinarian in a world of chaos, a sober man in a drunken era. His story challenges our preconceptions about piracy and reminds us that even in lawless professions, organization and strategy often trump brute force.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more topics you love.
Bonny. Bonny stands out in pirate lore as one of the few women who defied societal norms to pursue a life of maritime crime. Born in Ireland and raised in the American colonies, Bonny rejected the constraints of 18th century womanhood, choosing instead a life of adventure and danger on the high seas. Bonny's story is one of rebellion and reinvention. She abandoned a comfortable life and an arranged marriage, eloping with small-time pirate James Bonny. Unsatisfied with his lack of ambition, she soon left him for the more daring Calico Jack Rackham, joining his crew and participating in numerous raids. What makes Bonny remarkable is not just her gender, but her ferocity in battle. Accounts describe her as one of the most formidable fighters in Rackham's crew, wielding cutlass and pistol with deadly skill. She refused to hide her gender, openly defying the superstition that women were bad luck on ships. Bonny's fate remains a mystery, adding to her legend. Captured alongside Rackham and fellow female pirate Mary Red, she pleaded her belly-claimed pregnancy to avoid execution. She disappears from historical records after this, leaving her ultimate fate to speculation. Bonny's legacy challenges our understanding of both piracy and historical gender roles. She represents a radical form of female empowerment for her time, choosing a life of danger and freedom over societal expectations. Her story continues to inspire, reminding us that the human spirit can defy any boundary, even those of gender, in a male-dominated world. Mary Red. Mary Red's life reads like a work of fiction filled with disguise, adventure, and defiance of social norms. Born out of wedlock in England, Reed spent much of her early life disguised as a boy, a deception started by her mother to claim inheritance from Red's grandmother. This early experience of living as a male served Reed well, allowing her to pursue opportunities typically closed to women of her time. She joined the British military, serving with distinction, and even falling in love with a fellow soldier, briefly living as a married woman before her husband's death. Reed's path to piracy was circuitous. She boarded a ship bound for the West Indies, which was subsequently captured by pirates. Rather than being a victim, Reed saw an opportunity and joined the pirate crew, once again adopting a male persona. It was on Calico Jack Rackham's ship that Reed's true identity was discovered, along with that of Bonny. Other two women formed a fierce partnership, often fighting side by side and gaining reputations as two of the most formidable pirates in the Caribbean. Mary Red's story is one of survival through adaptation and courage in the face of societal constraints. She navigated a man's world by necessity and choice, finding in piracy a rare space where skill mattered more than gender. Her life challenges our assumptions about historical gender roles and reminds us that identity is often more fluid than rigid societal categories suggest. Henry Morgan. Sir Morgan, the Welsh private-turned-pirate, embodies the complex relationship between piracy and state power in the 17th century. Operating with a letter of marque from the British Crown, Morgan walked a fine line between legal privateer and outright pirate, his actions shaped by the political climate of his time. Morgan's campaigns against Spanish holdings in the Caribbean were breathtaking in their scope and audacity. His most famous exploit, the sack of Panama City in 1671, involved leading a force across the Panama, a feat considered impossible at the time. This blend of strategic thinking and sheer daring made Morgan a legend in his own lifetime. What sets Morgan apart from many pirates is his successful transition to respectability. Despite accusations of exceeding his commission and outright piracy, Morgan's political connections and the valuable service he provided to British interests in the Caribbean allowed him to not only avoid punishment, but to be knighted and appointed Lieutenant Governor of Jamaica. Morgan's legacy is complex. To the Spanish, he was a brutal pirate. To the British, a valuable asset in their imperial ambitions. To his crew, a charismatic leader who led them to untold riches. His life illustrates the often blurry line between piracy and state-sanctioned violence in an era of colonial expansion. Henry Morgan's story challenges us to consider the nature of legality and morality in times of conflict. It reminds us that history is often written by the victors, and that the line between hero and villain can shift with political winds. William Kidd. Captain William Kidd's tragic fall from grace represents one of the most controversial episodes in pirate history. Initially a respected privateer commissioned by British nobles to hunt pirates, Kidd's story is a cautionary tale about the fine line between legality and piracy in the complex political landscape of the late 17th century. Kidd's fateful voyage began with noble intentions to combat piracy and capture enemy French ships. However, a series of misfortunes and questionable decisions led to accusations of piracy against him. The capture of the Quedam Merchant, a ship with murky ownership, proved to be Kidd's undoing, transforming him from hunter to hunted. What makes Kidd's story particularly poignant is his steadfast belief in his innocence. Unlike many pirates who embraced their outlaw status, Kidd maintained that he had operated within the bounds of his commission. He returned to New York to clear his name, a decision that ultimately led to his arrest, trial, and execution. Kidd's trial was a political spectacle, with powerful interests aligning against him. Despite his protests and attempts to prove his innocence, he was found guilty and executed. His body was gibbeted over the Thames as a warning to other would-be pirates. The tragedy of William Kidd lies in the ambiguity of his guilt. Was he a pirate who hid behind a legal commission, or a scapegoat sacrificed for political expediency? His story serves as a stark reminder of the often arbitrary nature of justice and the dangerous game played by those who sail the thin line between privateer and pirate. Charles Vane. Charles Vane epitomizes the fierce independence and defiance that characterized the golden age of piracy. Unlike some of his contemporaries who accepted pardons or switched allegiances, Vane remained steadfastly committed to the pirate's life until his bitter end. Vane's reputation for brutality and his refusal to submit to authority made him both feared and respected among his peers. His most infamous act came when he fired on a French warship against the wishes of his crew. This display of reckless courage or foolhardiness led to a mutiny, with Vane being deposed as captain. What sets Vane apart is his resilience. After being marooned, he managed to escape and return to piracy, a testament to his determination and survival skills. His final capture came not through defeat in battle, but through the cruel twist of a shipwreck that left him stranded. Vane's unwavering commitment to the pirate's life, even when offered pardons, reflects a deeper rebellion against the societal norms and power structures of his time. His story is a reminder that for some, the freedom of a life outside the law was worth any price, even life itself. In many ways, Charles Vane represents the romantic ideal of the pirate, fierce, free, and uncompromising. His life and death serve as a stark illustration of both the allure and the harsh realities of the pirate's existence. Edward Lowe. Lowe stands out even among pirates for his exceptional cruelty, earning him the reputation as one of the most savage pirates in history. His story is a chilling reminder of the darkest aspects of human nature unleashed in a lawless environment. Lowe's entry into piracy came after a lifetime of poverty and crime. Unlike many who were press-ganged or turned to piracy out of necessity, Lowe seemed to relish the opportunity for violence and mayhem that piracy afforded him. His tactics went beyond mere robbery, often involving torture and murder for seemingly no reason beyond personal enjoyment. What makes Lowe's story particularly disturbing is the scale of his depredations. In just 3 years, he and his crew captured over 100 ships, leaving a trail of terror across the Atlantic. His methods were so brutal that they shocked even other pirates, with some refusing to work with him. Lowe's fate remains a mystery, adding to his legend. Some accounts claim he was overthrown by his own crew, sickened by his excesses. Others suggest he was captured and executed, or that he retired wealthy and unrepentant. Edward Lowe's legacy serves as a dark counterpoint to more romanticized views of piracy. His story reminds us that the freedom of lawlessness can unleash not just rebellion against unjust systems, but also the worst impulses of human cruelty. Ching Shih. Ching Shih, also known as Cheng Isao, stands as perhaps the most successful pirate in history, commanding a fleet that would have been the envy of many nations. Her rise from prostitute to pirate queen is a testament to her extraordinary political and strategic acumen. Ching Shih's power stemmed not just from military might, but from her ability to create a structured organization out of the chaos of piracy. She established a code of laws for her fleet, including rules protecting female captives from abuse, a rarity in the brutal world of piracy. What sets Ching Shih apart is the scale of her operations. At the height of her power, she commanded over 300 ships and 40,000 pirates, effectively controlling the South China Sea. Her fleet was powerful enough to challenge the Qing dynasty, defeating imperial fleets sent against her. Perhaps most remarkably, Ching Shih managed to negotiate her retirement from piracy on her own terms. Unlike most pirates who ended their careers at the gallows, she secured pardons for herself and most of her crew, retiring to run a gambling house. Ching Shih's story challenges Western-centric narratives of piracy and gender roles. She demonstrates that the golden age of piracy was not confined to the Caribbean, and that women could rise to positions of immense power even in male-dominated criminal enterprises. Francois l'Olonnais. Francois l'Olonnais, born Jean-David Noel, was a French pirate whose name became synonymous with brutality in the Caribbean. His story is one of transformation, from indentured servant to one of the most feared buccaneers of his time. L'Olonnais's reputation for cruelty was built on a foundation of revenge. After nearly being killed by Spanish forces, he developed a particular hatred for the Spanish, often torturing captives for information or simply for his own amusement. His methods were so extreme that they shocked even other pirates accustomed to violence. What makes l'Olonnais's story particularly compelling is the dramatic arc of his career. He rose from poverty to command a significant pirate fleet, leading audacious raids against Spanish holdings. The sack of Maracaibo was particularly noteworthy for its daring and the wealth it produced. L'Olonnais's end was as violent as his life. Accounts suggest he was captured and eaten by cannibals, a fate that many saw as fitting for a man who had inflicted so much suffering on others. The legacy of Francois l'Olonnais serves as a grim reminder of the cycle of violence that characterized much of the colonial Caribbean. His story illustrates how the brutal systems of colonialism and slavery could produce individuals capable of matching and exceeding that brutality. Calico Jack John Rackham. John Rackham, better known as Calico Jack, gained fame not so much for his piratical successes, which were modest, but for the company he kept and the romantic image he projected. His nickname came from the calico clothing he favored, setting him apart from the often ragtag appearance of other pirates. Calico Jack's most significant contribution to pirate lore was his association with Bonny and Mary Red, two of the most famous female pirates in history. His acceptance of women as full members of his crew was unusual for the time, and has contributed greatly to his enduring legend. What makes Rackham's story particularly interesting is the contrast between his colorful image and his relatively ineffective career as a pirate. Despite his flair for the dramatic, his exploits were generally small-scale, and his career was short-lived. Rackham's end came swiftly when his ship was captured while most of his crew was drunk. Reportedly, only Bonny and Mary Red offered any significant resistance. His execution in Jamaica marked the end of a brief but vibrant career that has captured the imagination of generations. Calico Jack's legacy lies more in the romantic image of piracy he helped create than in his actual exploits. His story, intertwined with those of Bonny and Red, continues to fascinate, offering a glimpse into the complex social dynamics of pirate crews. Samuel Bellamy. Samuel Bellamy, often called Black Sam, stands out in pirate history not just for his successful but brief career, but for the egalitarian principles he espoused. Known as the Prince of Pirates, Bellamy's approach to leadership and wealth distribution was remarkably progressive for his time. Bellamy's career as a pirate was sparked by love and ambition. He turned to piracy as a means to make his fortune and win the hand of Maria Hallett, a tale that has become legendary in New England folklore. His rapid rise to pirate captain speaks to his charisma and leadership skills. What sets Bellamy apart is his philosophy. He viewed himself as a sort of Robin Hood figure, stealing from the rich merchant ships and sharing the wealth among his crew. He was known for his mercy, often releasing captured crews and ships instead of sinking them. Bellamy's most famous capture, the slave ship Wider, became his flagship but also led to his demise. In a cruel twist of fate, Bellamy and his crew perished in a violent storm off the coast of Cape Cod, tantalizingly close to his love, Maria. Samuel Bellamy's legacy is one of contradiction, a criminal who espoused fairness, a rebel with a moral code. His brief career and untimely death have added to his romantic image, making him a symbol of the freedom and egalitarianism that many associate with the golden age of piracy.